Hello everybody, Darren Cross here. Welcome to Marketing and Management 340 International Business, and this is Module 7. In Module 7, we're covering the last couple of chapters that we're doing in this entire course. So next module is just the finish-up module. But in these last modules, 14 and 15, what we're talking about are still some functional areas of business, but as they relate on the global landscape. So the first part is talking about marketing. So when we're thinking about marketing, what we have to do is identify who our target market is, and then we communicate with our target market through our marketing mix. And that marketing mix is basically a message that says, this is the language that I'm using in order to communicate the marketing message to our target market. And the marketing mix, as you guys remember, hopefully, that's the 4 Ps. The product, what variations in the product do we have to take into consideration for that specific target market? The place, what place, we're talking about supply chains and distribution channels now. So how do we feed all of the things that we need in order to make the product, and then how do we actually get our product to people? What distribution models are we going to use? Is it online? Do we use stores? Do we use wholesale? Do we use vendors? Do we use affiliates? The third P is production, or promotion, and promotion is about how do we actually communicate our marketing message so that it makes sense for our target market. What's our promotional mix look like? Are we using online marketing? Are we using local marketing, especially when we're talking global markets or international markets and how they differ around the world? Are we going into each market and we changing our message on the basis of who they are? And then the last thing is price. What kind of pricing strategy makes sense? So that's really, when we're talking about the marketing mix, we're putting that stuff together in a very specific way so that our target market understands that language. And so we have to say, how does our target market, if you've ever taken any of my marketing classes, you know that the first question is to say, what language does a target market actually speak? And once we understand what that language is, then we can shift and mix and manipulate these 4 Ps in a way that it makes sense for that market. Well, that's the way it works. But when we're talking about globalizing, this changes everything because we don't all speak the same language all throughout the world. We don't have the same culture. We don't operate the same things, don't mean the same things to people as we go around the country. And so we have to shift all of those things so that we can make sense. And you can imagine that that's quite a complex thing to make sense of, right? Even in the United States, all of these things change whenever you go in different regions. I'll give you an example. When I was in the Navy and I lived in Virginia Beach on the East Coast, I remember talking to a friend of mine and I said, hey, let's go out for some seafood. And he said, great, where do you want to go? And I said, I'm from the Midwest. I'm from right here where we are now. And I say, how about Red Lobster? And he's like, I thought you wanted some seafood. They don't consider Red Lobster to be seafood because it means something different on the East Coast. How about this? Things that cost a certain amount here in the St. Louis metropolitan area might be dramatically more expensive in the Chicago metropolitan area. Or New York City. I often wonder, when I was a real estate agent, I would have these clients come from California, from like San Francisco, and they would say, I would like to limit my home search between $700 and $1.2 million. And of course, as a realtor in this area, I'm like, oh, that's great. Let me find all of the homes, and I would find the 8 homes in our entire area that are above $700,000. And then we'd start looking at these houses, and they'd be like, wow, this is amazing. Can we afford this house? And I'm like, yeah, this house is $700,000. Then I realized that there was a gap here. What is $700,000 in San Francisco is like $175,000 here. And so, my hope would be that they would say, okay, I want to buy this house for $700,000. But they actually said, I don't need this, so let's see if I can go down to $200,000. Well, my point is, things are dramatically different on the East and West Coast than they are here. If you tell someone they have to pay $1,500 of rent on the West Coast, they would be happy because that's cheap. And I wonder how they can actually live out there. So here, it's different. pricing is different among, throughout the country, even throughout one country. So imagine what it's like if you go from country to country. Same thing with product. Like I said, seafood is something in one area, but it's nothing here. It's a different thing here. And then we have variations on products because of maybe what's going on in that area. Promotional things matter. You promote things in a different way based upon all of those cultural elements that Hofstede talked about. So all of these things are going to change, and the distribution channel changes because now we are located in different parts of the world, so we have to try to understand how we get things to customers throughout the world, so that part matters as well. Then when we talk about Chapter 15, we're talking about the accounting and finance function of business as it relates to global as well. So, in the United States, we have, you guys know that in the United States we have GAAP regulations or GAAP guidelines that tell us how we actually operate from an accounting standpoint. But what happens when we go outside of the United States? Well, there are guidelines that we have to take into consideration there as well. And we have to figure out what it means to do all of those accounting functions that we normally do in a domestic and finance functions, creating income statements and cash flow statements and things like that. What does that mean when we take into consideration currency exchange and all of these things that actually change the landscape a little bit? So, the theme of this entire course is to say, okay, we conduct business, and, if I have a lemonade stand, it means quite a different thing when you consider me being on my block selling to people who are passing by than it does to think about how I get this lemonade to even people in the United States. That's one thing. So then distribution comes into play, and, scaling it within the United States. Then it becomes a dramatically different thing when we think about what it takes to take this throughout the world. And so the theme has been, how do we conduct business and do all of the functions of business? And then how do we take that and spread all of the functions of business all throughout the world? And so really, the final two pieces are those pieces in Chapter 14 and 15. And I think that it should make sense. It should be a modular expansion of thought there, and it should fall right in line with what we've been doing. So it should be pretty easy to understand that and to work through those things. So go ahead and dig into that stuff. And as always, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. Good luck, everyone.